What do racing games, skateboarding games, and fighting games all have in common? I don't know, I don't play any of them. It's not like I avoid them like the plague. I don't see Skate 3 and hiss aggressively, receding back into my man cave to play Sekiro for the 84th time, and I have played a couple of games in these two genres before, but I don't know, these games just never hook me. I look at them and I'm just not interested, even though I do find them interesting. The look of Gran Turismo and the cool AI they just talked about, the review scores and focus on fun that Forza Horizon 5 has, these things are intriguing, and I can't not like the fact that you can turn into a penguin in Mortal Kombat, but it's really the core of these games that stops me from trying too many out, or sticking with the ones that I do finally give a shot. This is the most true with skateboarding games. Like, I know Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is probably good, look at this Metacritic score, it's the second highest of all time, but I just look at it and think, why would I play this when I could be playing this? But now, that's all changed. Well, maybe not. I don't know if I'm going to play a skateboarding game again, but I really did enjoy this one. OlliOlli World is a game that I picked up because my brain was ready for some serious gaming in February with Sifu, Forbidden West, and Elden Ring, but because I did everything Sifu had to offer within a week, including beating it at age 20, there was kind of this dead zone between that and the next game. And Sifu had me tweaking for more new experiences, so instead of shilling out a bunch of money for Dying Light 2 to only probably not finish it before Horizon and then Elden Ring, meaning I'd abandon it halfway through, I decided to give this game a shot. I wanted to try something new, I liked the art style, screw it, I said, let's play a skateboarding game. And I'm pretty glad I did. OlliOlli World is both a perfect game for in-between play sessions, serving as an enjoyable experience that you can play for 30 minutes at a time and be content with that, and for a sweaty, palmed, thumb-destroying test of skill and mastery if you want it to be. It might take a short amount of time to really get its hooks in on you if you're a new player, but eventually it's that two-tone nature that makes the game so enjoyable and so easy to recommend to almost everyone, with one key exception that I'll explain in a moment. The game perfectly balances skill and chill, and you don't need to know about or care for or even like anything related to skateboarding to have a good time. OlliOlli World immediately presents the player with a welcoming environment through its sunshine and lollipop visuals, its approachable art style, its charming overworld map, level setups, and playful wording choices, and its laid-back music. The selection of songs here is basically ripped from that Lo-Fi Girls playlist and injected with just a bit more energy. They're very boppy and summery while still being subdued and not in your face, and it leads to a nice, fun, relaxing vibe that the rest of the presentation matches. Different sections of the map are color-coded and feature certain themes, with the individual levels featuring the same color palette as their overworld counterparts, but not to be too content with just that, each of these levels features something new in the background or foreground. Pigeons working out, crabs by a waterfall, aliens hanging out outside of UFOs, rushing rapids where a bear races you in a little floaty, ice cream themed obstacles. The game nails looking cohesive while not looking samey, and that means it's always a treat to experience. I'd understand if you were a bit averse to the actual art style of the game, even though I'm not. It's intentionally childish and sort of rudimentary, and of course strays pretty far from its predecessors. If it's not your thing, fair enough, but I thought it fit the gameplay and fun locations really well. Just at first glance, there's so much pop and personality in the visual design. The gameplay, though, is where we see how this thing can appeal to two entirely different audiences. If you strip it down to the basics, it's all pretty simple. Make it to the end of the course while dodging obstacles and avoiding crashing. While I definitely wouldn't recommend this to somebody who has little to no experience with games, since even at its most basic, there are plenty of mandatory missions that require decent hand-eye coordination with a controller, timing your dismounts, flicking the analog stick in quick succession, knowing how to maintain momentum, etc. Anyone with an intermediate understanding of how to play games can make their way through this. Some parts will get you for a bit, you might take a while getting the timing right in tougher areas, but you'll be fine if you're just focusing on the basic mechanics. They're pretty generous with checkpoints. Most of the movement and grinding is handled by the left analog stick. That's how you jump, land on rails, and wall run, so the challenge is more timing based than anything, and if you are playing this as just a fun game on the side that lets you play through cool obstacle courses with simple but fun movement, I'd recommend you just flick your analog stick in random directions when you jump to throw in a fancy trick or two, and focus on pressing X the instant that you land to get a perfect landing, and then just sit back and have fun. You don't need to do anything else to enjoy this game. But if you wanted to play it a different way... Dude, this game is so difficult if you want it to be. My first 2 hours of OlliOlli World were full of me going, oh, you can do this? You can do that? Wait, how many things can you do in this game? And the hours after that were filled with thumb blisters and exasperated sighs when I slammed into the same wall for the 90th time in a row. OlliOlli World is as tough as you make it. If you want to get a little bit fancy and go for some easier challenges, you can do that. Or you can do what I did and try from the jump to work towards the platinum, even though I've never played a game like this before, and I wasn't even close to the tutorials that taught me the moves I was trying to pull off. Each level has a set of goals which are usually the same: beat the level and beat the level without dying, but it also has a set of challenges which can be anything from collecting certain animals or items, to performing a certain number of tricks or grabs, to doing specific types of tricks in certain areas, and a lot more. Luckily, the challenges save once you do them, so if you're willing to go through a level a few times, you can focus on one challenge per run, but despite that, they can get pretty tough as you get closer to the end. What's far more difficult though, at least for me, is trying to obtain the trophies in this game as I go through it, which meant I not only had to do every challenge, I not only have to do the harder levels that present themselves on the game's completion, but I also have to incorporate all the game's systems into each of my runs of just about every level in order to get their masteries. Let me break this down for you. In this game, you can perform tricks, perform grabs when in the air, which are completed after being held for a certain amount of time, rotate in the air by holding trigger, time your grinds to match them perfectly, do different types of grinds, grabs, and wall grinds by holding the stick in a different way, perform grind switches, which require a longer rail where you need to hold down X and flick the left stick in some configuration to perform a trick, hold down circle while in the air and flick the analog stick in some way to perform late tricks, ones that you do in mid-air, and perform manuals where you have to land while holding the stick in a certain direction to grind on the front or back of your board in order to maintain your rail/wall combos, which you can also time to be perfect, by the way. And you have to do this all while just playing the game. Oh yeah, and these are all the tricks you can do. From an early stage, I was determined to get really good at this game. Even when I achieved the trophies for rotating a certain amount or doing a certain amount of perfect manuals, I kept doing them throughout the game because I wanted to bring everything together and become a skate god. And admittedly, I think I jumped the gun with how fast I tried to learn, which led to some frustration, but it also felt great when I pulled off a level or even small section with expertise, even if it was at the expense of my poor thumb. But I think the best part about this game was the fact that I created that steep learning curve for myself, on purpose, whereas someone else could create a much more comfortable and relaxed one if they chose to do so. Neither way is really the right way to play. The game encourages you to apply skills in your runs, and sometimes they're necessary to continue, but if that's not how you want to play, that's fine. Those mandatory sections are pretty straightforward. Part of what pushed me away from skateboarding games was the fact that I thought if I didn't know how to maneuver in really interesting ways with my controller, I'd be stuck with a bland experience featuring visuals that don't interest me. And I guess I don't know yet if that's true or not, since this is a very specific type of skateboarding game, but a lot of the fun comes from the learning of how to be good, either at the basics or at the more advanced maneuvers, which I wasn't expecting. And I will say that I came out of it thinking that there weren't many ways for a player of almost any kind to not have some fun with this game. Other than players that struggle with maintaining a decent level of coordination, of course. No shade if that's you, but I will say not to get too fooled by the cutesy look of this game. It's not super easy. And if you are looking for a semi-challenging experience, nothing too crazy, you might find that the first area is a bit lacking in enjoyable mechanics, but you get past that pretty quick. I know this is a bit of a niche genre and topic that people who've subscribed to me might not be interested in, but if you watched this video and you made it this far, I'd say maybe reconsider your biases for a game like this one. I think you'll find something to like. I'm not a skateboarding fan, but I love OlliOlli World, and even if you're not a skateboarding fan, you probably will too.